Welcome to CaseVault, where the darkest mysteries and most chilling true crimes are unlocked and examined. Join me as we explore the most hauntingly mysterious unsolved cases from around the world. Some of these mysteries date back decades, while others have occurred more recently. They all remain unsolved. Some have been kept secret for years, while others have only just come to light. Before we begin, please subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, please tap the like button because it really helps our channel. And finally, turn on your notifications so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now let's dive into this week's case. It was just another ordinary day in the working-class neighborhood of West Philadelphia in 1957 until a group of children stumbled upon something truly horrifying. As they were playing in the woods near the 6600 block of North 12th Street, they found a cardboard box. At first, they thought it was just an old, discarded box, perhaps containing some old clothes or maybe just trash. But as they got closer, they heard a sound that froze their blood. There was a faint sound of movement coming from inside the box. The children quickly ran away and told the local residents what they had found. An investigation was launched and the police arrived at the scene. What they discovered inside that box was beyond disturbing. It was the lifeless body of a young boy who had been brutally murdered. The police were shocked by the callous way in which the child had been disposed of, dumped in a shallow grave and covered with leaves. But there was one detail that made the case even more perplexing. No one knew who the boy was, where he came from, or why he was killed. The police began a massive search of the area, going door to door, showing residents pictures of the boy in the hopes that someone would recognize him. But their efforts were in vain. No one had seen him or knew anything about him. The boy's body was then taken to the morgue, where an autopsy revealed that he had died from multiple blows to the head. Despite this, there were no witnesses to the crime and no suspects. The case remained open but went cold after several months. Every year, the police would follow up on new leads and potential sightings, but each one ended up being a dead end. Decades passed, and the boy in the box became one of America's most haunting unsolved cases. In the years since the murder, several theories have emerged about the identity of the boy and who could have killed him. Some believe that he may have been the victim of a random act of violence, while others think that he may have been the target of a serial killer. There has even been speculation that the boy may have been the victim of satanic ritual abuse. However, none of these theories have ever been proven, and the truth behind the case remains elusive. In recent years, advances in DNA technology have given investigators new hope that they may finally be able to solve the case. In 2019, the police announced that they had recovered some of the boy's genetic material from the clothing he was found in. They are hoping that by entering the DNA into a national database, they will be able to get a match and identify the boy once and for all. But even if they do manage to identify him, it may not bring closure to this haunting case. The person responsible for his murder is still out there, and justice has yet to be served. Even after 6 decades, the boy in the box remains one of America's most haunting unsolved cases. The brutality of the crime and the fact that the killer has never been brought to justice has shocked and horrified the nation. As we continue to search for answers in this case, we can only hope that one day the truth will be revealed and that the memory of this little boy will finally be laid to rest. The city of brotherly love is known for its rich history, its iconic Liberty Bell, and sadly, a gruesome mystery from the late 1950s. Today, we'll take you back to a time when Philadelphia was grappling with a case that not only shocked the nation, but also left law enforcement puzzled for decades. Join us as we delve into the haunting tale of America's most infamous unsolved case, the boy in the box. Few would have guessed that the seemingly tranquil neighborhood of Fox Chase, Pennsylvania, was about to be ripped apart by a tragedy that defied explanation. The year was 1957, and the United States was basking in the glow of post-war prosperity. But just beneath the surface, darkness was brewing in the quiet suburbs of Philadelphia. On that fateful day in February, Two men set out to hunt rabbits along the hunting park section of the Frankford Creek. They had no way of knowing that their peaceful afternoon would soon turn into a nightmare. As they walked along the railroad tracks near the creek, they noticed a small patch of cardboard sticking out from beneath some tree branches. Assuming it was just litter, they walked past it without a second thought. However, a few steps later, curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to go back and investigate. What they found changed their lives forever. At first, it looked like any other discarded box, perhaps containing old appliances or forgotten furniture. But upon closer inspection, they realized it was something far more sinister. When they peered inside, they discovered a small child neatly tucked within. Their hearts sank as they realized the box was not just filled with discarded items, but with the lifeless body of a young boy. The immediate reaction was disbelief, quickly followed by panic. They knew they had stumbled upon a crime scene, yet neither of them wanted to touch anything, afraid of contaminating the evidence. One of the men stayed behind to keep watch over the box, while the other ran to find help. News of the gruesome discovery spread like wildfire, ripping through the quiet neighborhood and jolting the entire city of Philadelphia awake. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows, the police arrived at the scene. The quiet woods now swarming with activity. The presence of a dead child sent shockwaves through the community. Parents clutched their children close, questioning how such a thing could happen in their seemingly safe neighborhood. The question on everyone's mind was, who could have done such a thing? And why? As the investigation began, the medical examiner's report revealed chilling details about the boy's life and death. The examiner estimated that the child was between 4 and 6 years old, standing just 3 feet, 8 inches tall. At the time of his death, the cause of death was determined to be multiple blows to the head, indicating a violent struggle before his passing. The examination also uncovered signs of chronic malnutrition, suggesting that the boy had endured a prolonged period of starvation, not just in the days leading up to his death. This was no act of a stranger. This was a calculated, cruel act of violence against a defenseless child. But as the days turned into weeks and then months, the case remained unsolved. The killer remained at large, leaving behind a community scarred by fear and unanswered questions. The lack of leads was baffling. Neighbors were questioned, witnesses were sought out, and every lead was thoroughly investigated. But the boy's identity remained a mystery, as did the motives behind his brutal murder. It was as though the killer had vanished into thin air, taking all the answers with them. In a desperate attempt to identify the boy and find his killer, the police released a series of composite sketches based on eyewitness accounts. These images became a haunting part of the city's folklore, a symbol of the unknown and the unsettling. Every face staring back from the posters seemed to echo the same question: "Can you help me remember my name?" The people of Philadelphia rallied together in an outpouring of grief and support. Fundraisers were held, memorials created, and vigils organized. The city mourned a child no one could identify, a victim whose name they never learned. As the years passed, the case grew colder, the hope of finding the killer fading with each passing season. Yet, the determination of the police never waned. Every few years, new investigative techniques allowed them to revisit the case, hoping for a breakthrough. Advanced DNA testing was conducted, forensic evidence re-examined, but the killer remained elusive. The passage of time brought with it a sense of resignation. The boy in the box became a part of Philadelphia's collective memory, a ghost that lingered in the city's consciousness. New generations grew up hearing his story, their parents sharing the chilling tale as a warning and a reminder. In 2002, writer and filmmaker John G. Kelly published a book titled The Boy in the Box, America's Unsolved Child Murder Mystery. In it, he explored every aspect of the case, from the initial investigation to the public's involvement and the subsequent media frenzy. The book became a bestseller, keeping the case alive in the public's memory. Over the years, thousands of theories have emerged, each attempting to explain the mystery of the boy in the box. Some believe he was the victim of a one-off crime, a random act of violence by a stranger. Others believe he was a victim of a serial killer who preyed on vulnerable children. Still, others believe that the answer lies somewhere in the dark underbelly of society, a place where secrets are buried and justice is hard to come by. Over the decades, numerous individuals have come forward claiming to have information about the case. Some stories were plausible, offering intriguing new leads. Others bordered on the fantastical, adding layers of confusion to an already complex puzzle. Each tip sent the police and the public into a frenzy of excitement, only to end in disappointment. The boy's identity remained a secret, his story a mystery. Despite the passage of time, the boy in the box continues to haunt the dreams of many. His image burned into the minds of those who saw the case, a chilling reminder of the city's darkest day. Some say that his spirit wanders the streets of Philadelphia, searching for answers, for peace. Others believe that his story is a cautionary tale, a warning about the dangers that can lurk in the shadows of an otherwise peaceful community. So who was the boy in the box? Was he simply a victim of circumstance, a casualty of a senseless crime? Or was there more to the story? A deeper, more sinister reason behind his untimely demise. The truth remains hidden, lost to time and buried with the boy in the box. The case of the boy in the box remains one of the most compelling unsolved mysteries in American history. It's a story that has captured the imagination and horrified the conscience of the nation. This case is a stark reminder that even in the face of unimaginable evil, the human spirit can prevail. The unwavering dedication of those seeking justice for the boy in the box echoes throughout the decades, a testament to our enduring empathy. As we reflect on this haunting case, let us remember not just the victim, but also the tireless efforts of those who seek justice. The boy in the box may never have received his name, but his story will forever be etched in our collective memory. We encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Every voice, no matter how small, adds to the chorus demanding justice for the forgotten child. Together, we can keep his memory alive, ensuring that the boy in the box is never forgotten. This is the tragic tale of the boy in the box, whose name we'll never know. Imagine being in the shoes of the Philadelphia police in the 1950s. You get a call about a potential dead body in a secluded area of the city. These calls come in occasionally. Sometimes the caller means well, other times not so much. So when officers arrived at the intersection of 63rd Street and Overbrook Avenue on February 25, 1957, they were somewhat prepared for the worst. But nothing could have prepared them for what they actually found. It was the kind of discovery that can scar a person for life. There he was in a cardboard box, barely 4 years old and already cold in death. His tiny body wrapped in a blanket, seemingly abandoned and alone. To understand the impact of this case, we need to look at its immediate aftermath. In the first hours after this horrific discovery, several departments worked together to investigate the crime. However, from the start, there was confusion and a lack of clarity. Despite finding the body in Philadelphia, the county coroner's office decided it needed to be sent to another facility for examination. This meant the child's body wasn't immediately returned to the city where he was found, delaying crucial early steps in the investigation. When a reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer saw the body at the morgue, he described the child as wearing a jacket, tie, and shoes, and carrying a broken toy drum. The description suggests the child might have been put together for the day, implying some level of planning. While he had no ID, the clothes and drum pointed towards a middle-class upbringing, making the abandonment even more puzzling. At the beginning, the police had very little to work with. They didn't know if the child had been killed where he was found or if his body had been moved. There was no evidence of foul play on the surface. And while they later learned the cause of death was blunt force trauma, they weren't sure if it was from an accident or a crime. Without a name or a history, building a timeline seemed like an impossible task. With no witnesses coming forward, the case stalled. As mentioned earlier, the police took extraordinary measures. They even dug through records of missing persons, at the time, hoping to find a match. But nothing concrete turned up. No one had reported the boy missing. No one was looking for him. It was as if he had fallen off the edge of the earth, leaving behind no trace of his existence. And so the searchers focused on what they did have. The first thing they noticed was the box itself. It was a plain, slightly battered brown box, the kind used by grocers and butchers. Why was a child placed in such a container? Was it to protect him during transport, or was it simply the means to dispose of him? The police kept the box as evidence, hoping it might hold a clue. And when a local carpenter saw a picture of it, he said it matched the box he had delivered to an address on 63rd Street just 2 days prior. Could the house hold answers? Sadly, the hope was dashed when investigators visited. The occupants claimed they had not received any box. The trail went cold. Then there was the matter of the clothing. The neatly dressed boy suggested a familiar setting for his death, possibly his home or a place he frequented. This assumption was strengthened by the toy drum. It was a well-known brand, hinting at a middle-class background. Such details were significant because they shaped the police theory. Was this a case of accidental injury or something more sinister? And if the latter, was it a crime of passion or a calculated act? During those initial days, the investigation team faced another challenge, understanding what resources they had and which avenues to pursue. Back in the 1950s, forensic science was not as advanced as it is today. Fingerprinting was common, but DNA analysis was still decades away. The same was true for facial reconstruction. All these tools are now standard in death investigations, but back then the police were working in the dark. In the absence of forensic support, the police leaned heavily on the public. They distributed thousands of flyers, each bearing the same haunting image, the boy in the box. The strategy paid off in one respect, keeping the case in the public eye. Every passerby who saw the boy's face was reminded of the unsolved mystery. But more importantly, someone might come forward with information. Even a small detail could be crucial. However, month after month, the tips trickled in, none leading to a breakthrough. The relentless media coverage helped keep the pressure on the police to solve the case. The public wanted answers, and the police were determined to deliver. They pursued every lead, however faint, hoping to bring the boy's story to a close. But as the weeks turned into months, the case grew colder. Witnesses moved away, memories faded, and the killer, if still free, grew more confident. Still, the police refused to give up. They continued to revisit leads, re-interview witnesses, and comb through the evidence. Time was their enemy, but they were determined to use every second wisely. Their goal remained unchanged, to identify the boy and find justice for him, whatever the cost. Now let's delve into the consequences of this tragic event. How did it affect the community and the course of justice? The impact of the boy in the box case went beyond the immediate investigation. It shook the community to its core. Parents clutched their children closer, fearing that such a tragedy could strike anywhere. Sleepless nights became the norm as people wondered if the killer was among them. The neighborhood watch groups formed, banding together to protect their children, and no one strolled alone at night. Fear became a constant companion. But as the case dragged on, fear gave way to anger. People questioned the police tactics. Why did it take so long to distribute flyers? Why was the press kept in the dark? Were the authorities doing all they could? The tension reached a boiling point when rumors began to circulate. Some whispered that the police had bungled the investigation. Others claimed the killer was known, but the police were protecting him. Conspiracy theories flourished, deepening the divide between the community and the police. Trust, once shattered, was hard to repair. Looking back, we can see that the investigation, while thorough, lacked coordination. Resources were stretched thin, and the team lacked specialized forensic support. Today, we expect swift action and tangible results. But in the 50s, patience was a virtue, whether people liked it or not. The case became a microcosm of the larger societal shifts. People were no longer willing to accept the status quo. They demanded answers, and they wanted them now. What makes this case especially haunting is the enduring mystery. We still don't know the boy's name, and his killer has never been brought to justice. This lack of closure is a rare occurrence in criminal cases. Usually, time brings some form of resolution. But here, the passage of time has only intensified the questions. Why was the boy abandoned? Who were his parents? And why couldn't the police identify him? The case remains an open wound, a stark reminder of a crime without answers. Finally, let's explore the lessons learned and the legacy of the case. The boy in the box case wasn't just a local tragedy. It became a touchstone for changes in criminal investigation. Before this case, police work was largely reactive. They responded to crimes as they occurred and followed leads as they developed. But the boy in the box case highlighted the need for proactivity. The police needed to be more aggressive in their pursuit of leads, more systematic in their approach. The advent of new technologies also played a role. As DNA analysis and facial recognition improved, they offered new ways to crack cold cases. However, technology alone cannot solve every mystery. The boy in the box case remains a testament to that. In the end, this case was about more than just solving a crime. It was about giving a name to a faceless child, about bringing closure to a grieving unknown family. It's a story that stays with us, reminding us that sometimes the most heartbreaking mysteries have no neat endings. A chill ran down my spine as I stepped out of the car. A stiff November breeze rustled through the dry leaves on the forest floor, each crunch of twigs underfoot, a metronome marking the passage of time. It was here in this very spot that an unknown boy had been found over 5 decades ago. His battered body stuffed inside a wooden box, his face forever obscured by the lid. Our journey begins on February 25th, 1957, in the midst of a Philly winter. At around 8:30 a.m., 2 young men, friends and co-workers at a local paper company, parked their car at the corner of 63rd Street and Woodland Avenue. They were on a cigarette break, but instead of lighting up, they stumbled upon something chilling. A wooden box, innocuous except for its unusual placement amid the neat rows of homes. Curious, they opened the box to discover the unimaginable, the lifeless form of a small boy. His head was bruised, his clothes rumpled, his eyes staring vacantly into the gray winter sky. The rest of his story, or rather the lack thereof, is what has kept this case open for over 6 decades. Where did this child come from? How did he die? And why has his identity remained a secret all these years? The first hours after the discovery were a flurry of activity. The news spread like wildfire, gripping the city of brotherly love in a vice of fear and confusion. The boy, estimated to be between 4 and 7 years old, became known simply as America's unknown child. Medical examiners worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle of his final moments. Their findings were grim. The boy had suffered multiple blows to the head, indicating a violent death. But the answers they sought remained elusive. To put it mildly, the police were stumped. With no witnesses, no immediate family members coming forward, and no sign of where the child might have lived, the investigation hit a wall. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into years, the detectives refused to let the case grow cold. They followed countless leads, each one offering a tantalizing possibility only to lead them in circles. Forensics was in its infancy back then, and without DNA technology, they were largely in the dark. The fingerprints of the boy were entered into the FBI database, but they weren't a match for any known criminals or missing persons. It was as if the boy had fallen from the sky, a silent, spectral visitor with no origins and no destination. Here's the thing, though. Kids go missing every single year. Just last year in 2022, over 230,000 children were reported missing in the United States alone. A lot of these cases receive national attention. Think of the kidnapping of Stephen Stainer, who was abducted in 1972 and kept captive for 8 years. Or the disappearance of Maura Murray, whose case remains a mystery to this day. However, not all missing children get this kind of coverage. There are thousands of cases that don't make headlines. This raises a question. How does the media decide which missing children's stories become nationally known? Factors such as the child's age, the nature of the disappearance, and the amount of media attention given to the case play a role. Sometimes the answer lies in the unlikelihood of the event itself. For instance, in 1981, the abduction of Adam Walsh shocked the nation because of the brutal nature of the crime and the subsequent media circus. Likewise, the boy in the box case captivated the public's imagination partly due to the sheer mystery surrounding it. But there is a darker side to this fascination. By focusing on certain cases, we inadvertently turn others into cold files. The problem is not all missing children get the same chance at justice. Now imagine being a parent in the 1950s and your child goes missing. You would do anything to find them, right? Well, back then, resources were limited. Parents relied on community networks, local newspapers, and word of mouth. Gone were the days of Amber Alerts and national hotlines. And this is where the tragedy of the boy in the box becomes more complex. If his family was poor, uneducated, or perhaps of color, it's entirely possible that a report of a missing child might never have reached the authorities. And if the police were already stretched thin across the city, they might not have put much effort into searching for a missing child from a marginalized community. So the question is, were there other cases like his that never got the attention they deserved? After several months, the police started pursuing theories, some grounded in investigative work, others in the whispers and rumors that spread through the close-knit community. Some residents claimed to have seen the boy with various families, but their memories were hazy and their descriptions often contradictory. Others whispered of a hidden network of abused children, suggesting the boy might have been a victim of satanic ritual abuse. Yes, satanic panic was real back then. But as strange as these theories sound, they highlight a reality. People knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what. In the absence of hard evidence, the boy in the box case became a game of cat and mouse between the detectives and the shadows, each clue leading to a dead end, each interview bringing them no closer to the truth. The boy's body was laid to rest in a cemetery in West Philadelphia. An anonymous grave marker serves as his epitaph. To this day, no one has claimed him, no one has named him. Over the years, a few people came forward claiming to be the boy's brother or sister, but none of these claims were substantiated. And so the mystery deepens. Who was this child? Where did he come from? Did his family know what happened to him? One man who lived near where the body was found recalled a peculiar sight, a red convertible driving slowly past the cemetery on the day the boy was buried. The driver, a woman, supposedly had a pair of binoculars in her hands, observing the funeral procession. Many believe this woman, known only as the Binocular Lady, might hold the key to solving the puzzle, but her identity remains a secret. Some say she was the boy's mother or perhaps a relative. Others believe she was a kidnapper or someone who witnessed the burial. Now, why would someone want to see the funeral of a kid they had absolutely no relation to? Maybe she was overcome with emotion, or maybe she was hiding her face because she was ashamed of what she had done. Either way, this odd sighting has only added more questions to the case. Another fascinating aspect of this case is the evolution of forensic science. Back in the 50s, science wasn't as advanced as it is now. When the boy was initially found, the police couldn't figure out his exact age. They thought he was between 4 and 7. But as medical science improved, they realized he was closer to 4. Back then, determining a child's age was mainly based on physical characteristics and observation. There was no fancy technology to pinpoint it. As technology advanced, so did our understanding of the case. The police re-examined the evidence, and now they think the boy was 5 years old when he died. Now, you might think, big deal, just a year, right? But in a case like this, accuracy matters. If the police knew his exact age, they could have used databases that compare missing children's ages with unidentified bodies. Plus, they could have asked the public to provide more information about a missing child of that specific age. In a way, this case is a reminder of how crucial science and technology are in solving mysteries. Who knows what breakthroughs might help crack this case wide open? One can only hope that someday soon, this mysterious boy will finally get the answers he deserves. In the meantime, the search for answers continues. Volunteers comb through old records, hoping to find a name, a birth certificate, a school enrollment. Someone, somewhere must have noticed his absence. Someone must have called out his name one day too many times and wondered why he didn't answer. It's not just a case anymore. It's a plea for recognition, for remembrance. A group of volunteers known as the Find Our Missing Children Foundation have taken it upon themselves to continue the search for the boy's identity. They visit libraries, talk to historians, and reach out to genealogy experts. Their determination is unwavering, driven by a belief that no child should be forgotten. But while the quest for answers continues, so do the nightmares. Each night, somewhere in America, a child wakes up crying, clutching his teddy bear a little tighter, haunted by the ghost of a boy in a box. The case of the boy in the box is the kind of story that doesn't seem to belong in our time. A child found dead in a strange place, no one coming forward with answers, and then a name that was unknown for over 65 years. Today, we have more tools at our disposal to solve such mysteries than ever before. And in the case of the boy in the box, these advances would ultimately lead to the recovery of his name. So join me as we look back at the case of America's unknown child. See how forensic science has evolved and explore how recent breakthroughs led to his ultimate identification. A chilling discovery in 1957. The year is 1957, and the location, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. One cold February morning, two boys playing near an abandoned house stumbled upon a cardboard box covered with wallpaper. Inside was something that turned their game into a nightmare, a small wooden box. And when they opened it, they found the body of a young boy. News of the discovery spread quickly, shocking the local community. The police released a photograph of the boy, hoping anyone could identify him or perhaps recognize a missing child. Over the years, thousands of tips poured in, but none provided a definitive answer. A time of limited resources. The investigation into the boy's death was hampered by the scientific limitations of the time. There were no new leads, and any small pieces of evidence were either not collected or not analyzed properly. The lack of answers allowed myths and speculations to grow. Theories abounded. Was the boy a victim of a crime? Had he run away from home? Or was there foul play involved? But one fact remained clear. The absence of answers was agonizing. For the boy, who would forever be known as America's unknown child, his story seemed destined to end right there, forgotten in a box beneath some wallpaper. Decades pass. The case of the boy in the box didn't stay buried for long. Every few years, it seemed to resurface, capturing the attention of a new generation of investigators, journalists, and private citizens. Throughout the decades, people kept searching for answers, trying to break the silence surrounding the boy's death. The passage of time had deepened the mystery, making it all the more haunting. But each time the case was reopened, it hit a wall, limited by the resources and technology available. Yet the hope to uncover the truth never faded. A second chance, exhumation, and new leads. In 1998, after 41 years, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Authorities made the tough call to dig up the boy's grave. The hope was that modern forensic science could do what had been impossible in the 1950s. This wasn't just a routine investigation anymore. This was a chance to give the boy a proper identity. Using advanced DNA techniques, investigators were able to get a rough idea of the boy's appearance, shedding light on his eye color and hair type. However, despite the incredible feat of extracting DNA from a 40-year-old corpse, the results weren't conclusive enough to identify him. But the process stopped short of providing a full DNA profile. Still, this was a breakthrough. For the first time, the boy was more than a face in a photograph. He was a biological profile, a set of genetic markers. And this small step opened the door to future possibilities: isotope analysis and facial reconstructions. As technology advanced, the investigation didn't stop. In the early 2000s, scientists used a different approach to solve parts of the mystery. They focused on isotope analysis of the boy's hair and teeth. These chemical signatures can reveal where a person gets their water from and other information about their environment. For the boy, the analysis suggested he had lived in the northeastern United States, a clue that pointed investigators in the right direction. During this time, forensic artists created new facial reconstructions of the boy. These were not the simple drawings done in the past, but computer-generated images that tried to capture his likeness. These images were shared widely, from newspapers to television shows, keeping the boy in the public eye and rekindling hope for his identification. Advancements in DNA technology. Despite these efforts, the case remained unsolved for another 2 decades. Then in 2022, the wait ended. After 65 years of being known only as the boy in the box, investigators had finally uncovered his name. This wasn't because of anything new. They went back to the DNA profile created in 1998. With the rise of genealogical DNA databases, the same technology that helped crack the Golden State Killer case, investigators started comparing the boy's DNA to family trees published on various websites. This method is relatively new in the world of forensics. It involves looking at public genealogical records to find people who share similar DNA with an unknown individual. If these people are willing to be contacted, investigators can then ask them to provide a DNA sample. By comparing the samples, it's possible to establish a relationship and potentially work out who the unidentified person is. But it's a slow process that relies on volunteers and often runs into privacy concerns. Still, it was worth a shot. And in the case of the boy in the box, it would prove to be the breakthrough they had been waiting for: the breakthrough identification. After combing through genealogical records, investigators zeroed in on a potential relative of the boy. This person was hesitant at first, worried about the implications of getting involved. But as they saw the evidence mounting, they agreed to provide a DNA sample. The results confirmed what everyone had been hoping for. The boy in the box had a name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Through further investigation, police were able to piece together details of his life. Born in January 1953, Joseph was the son of Antonio and Anna Zarelli. He had 4 siblings, 2 older and 2 younger than him. But despite having a family, no one had reported him missing. The discovery of his body was the first time his name had been spoken in more than 65 years. It was a moment that brought relief, but also a host of new questions. Why did no one report him missing? What had happened to his family? And most importantly, who killed him and why? Unfortunately, the answers to these questions remain elusive. Both of Joseph's parents are deceased, which means investigators can't question them directly. And the family members alive today have chosen to keep quiet, perhaps out of respect for their privacy, or maybe because they have nothing to say. Science restores a name, but not justice. In many ways, the identification of Joseph Augustus Zarelli is a triumph of forensic science. After more than 6 decades, he was no longer just a nameless corpse. He was a son, a brother, a human being with a story. But as satisfying as it may be to finally know his name, it's important to remember what's still missing. Justice, the reason behind his death, and the killer's identity remain unknown. His grave marker no longer reads, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy," but it still doesn't have a name. The identification was a crucial first step, but the search for answers is far from over. A legacy of silence. The boy in the box case isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a reminder of how much can be lost over time and how fragile memories are. When the boy was found in 1957, there were witnesses, physical evidence, and potential leads. But as time passed, these dwindled, leaving behind a mountain of speculation and myth. The fact that he was unidentified didn't help matters. Instead of Joseph, we had the boy in the box, an image that dominated headlines and stuck in the public imagination. This label stripped him of his humanity, turning him into a symbol of a crime rather than a person with a story, hopes, and dreams. Even the way the case was investigated initially was problematic. Back in the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of stigma attached to identifying children who were found dead, especially if they were identified. Unidentified bodies were seen as shameful, as a stain on a community's reputation, which discouraged people from coming forward with information. This attitude not only made it harder to identify the boy, but also understand the circumstances surrounding his death. The importance of naming the dead. Giving a name to the dead is not just a formality. It's a fundamental part of respecting a person's identity. When we don't name the dead, we deny them their humanity, turning them into statistics or cases. We also rob ourselves of the chance to learn from their stories. In the case of the boy in the box, it took over 6 decades to give Joseph a name. But imagine how much more we could have learned about him and his life if we had done it sooner. His story is sad and tragic, but it's also a reminder of what we should never forget. As we continue to investigate the events leading to Joseph's death, we must also honor his memory by telling his story and ensuring that he is never forgotten. Remember, the case of the boy in the box is not just a historical event. It's a story that continues to unfold. On February 25, 1957, a man walking his dog in Philadelphia discovered a small cardboard box near some train tracks. Inside the box, wrapped in a blanket, was the body of a young boy, no older than 4. This disturbing scene sparked one of the longest and most extensive investigations in Philadelphia's history, a hunt that continues to this day. The killer was never caught, and the victim was buried as America's unknown child. This is the full story of the boy in the box. It all started in a residential neighborhood in the Mount Airy section of Northwest Philadelphia. The area at the time was predominantly white, middle class, and quiet. So when Albert M. Southworth was out walking his basset hound on those railroad tracks along the east side of the neighborhood, he didn't expect to find anything unusual. But as his dog Scout sniffed around a large cardboard box tucked between 2 buildings, it began to bark. When Southworth looked inside, he saw a pair of little feet. Frightened, he called out for help. Soon, several neighbors were gathered around the box. As they carefully lifted the lid, they found themselves staring at a sight that would haunt their collective memory for decades. The child lying inside was emaciated, barely 30 pounds. He was wrapped in a blanket and dressed in a sweater, socks, and shoes, all of which were too big for him. A leather strap was tied tightly around his middle, cinching his ribs. There was no hat, no gloves, nothing to distinguish the boy or shed light on how he ended up abandoned and dead in a stranger's backyard. The first officers to arrive on the scene, Sergeant Daniel J. Sullivan and Patrolman John J. O'Donnell, would later recall the shocking state of the child's body. His skin was cold, clammy, and gray. His hair, dirty blonde, was matted and full of lice. One shoe was missing, leaving only a single sock on one foot. The other sock was dangling from a ligature around his ankle. His face was bruised, his eyes swollen. Judging from the child's clothing, the officers believed he was about 4 years old. But because his teeth hadn't yet come in, they couldn't be sure of his exact age. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, then the city, then the country. How could such a young child be left to die alone? Who was responsible? Over the next few weeks, scores of social workers, doctors, psychiatrists, ministers, and concerned citizens reached out to the police with possible explanations. Some suggested the boy was an unwed father whose mother had killed him to protect her family's honor. Others said he might be the victim of ritualistic abuse. Still others argued he was an accidental casualty of organized crime, perhaps a mobster's son killed by rival gang members to send a message. But despite hundreds of leads and countless hours of investigation, none of these theories panned out. In the meantime, the media frenzy surrounding the case showed no signs of slowing down. On March 5th, a full month after the discovery of the body, the Daily News published a story suggesting that the boy had been kidnapped from the nearby suburb of Jenkintown. In addition to the usual description, this article included a new detail that set this case apart from other crimes: a reward. In this case, it was $500 donated by various women in the neighborhood where the boy was found. If it was the first time anyone had referred to the unidentified victim as the boy, as opposed to the victim or the child, this was the first time he was given a sense of personhood, and that was crucial. It would become a critical part of what captured the public's imagination. From the start, the people of Philadelphia wanted to solve this crime, not just because it was heinous and heartbreaking, but because it seemed personal. Many residents began to take matters into their own hands, poring over church and school records, tracking down stray dogs in the area, hoping they might have witnessed something, speaking to anyone who might have seen a suspicious vehicle or a disheveled man wandering around the neighborhood. At the time, there was no national database of missing children, so reports varied wildly in their specificity. The boy was sometimes described as 2 feet tall, sometimes 3. Sometimes he was 30 pounds, sometimes 50. Sometimes he had red hair, sometimes brown. And the lack of a consistent description made it harder to narrow down the possibilities. Years passed. The reward money dwindled and most of the leads went cold. By the 1970s, the search had gone international, with authorities checking missing persons reports in Canada, South America, and Europe. But nothing yielded results. Frustrated, determined to see the case through, Philadelphia District Attorney Richard A. Sprague turned to advanced technology in hopes it would reveal something the team had missed. In 1978, a composite sketch of the boy was created using age progression technology. Meanwhile, forensic artists produced images of what the child might have looked like at the time of his death. These new images only fueled the public's interest in the case, placing the boy on billboards, magazine covers, and television programs across the country. Over the years, a staggering number of people came forward claiming to be the boy's biological parents. One couple even attempted to collect insurance money, citing a fictitious missing child. Their plot was eventually uncovered, and the pair was convicted of fraud, but the mystery remained unsolved. In 1980, the medical examiner estimated the boy's age more accurately, placing him between 2.5 and 6 years old. With a new description in hand, the search resumed. People continued to call the police with potential sightings. Other times they came forward with information regarding the boy's background. One woman insisted she'd seen a couple matching the suspected parent's description, buying the very blanket the boy was found wrapped in. Even author Truman Capote became involved. He followed the case closely and supposedly told friends he was working on a non-fiction novel about it. However, only 3 chapters were ever written. In 1990, the case was featured on America's Most Wanted. By this point, the show's producers knew they had something special on their hands. "This is one of the most heavily watched segments we have ever done," said John Walsh, host of America's Most Wanted. "It has generated more viewer calls than any other episode we have ever broadcast." Unfortunately, those tips didn't pan out either. In the years that followed, the boy was memorialized in books, documentaries, TV movies, and newspaper retrospectives. The turn of the century brought with it renewed hope that the advances in DNA technology would help crack the case. In 2002, the Philadelphia Police Department created a special tip line for the boy in the box case and began offering a reward of up to $10,000 for information leading to an arrest. 4 years later, they exhumed the boy's body to collect DNA samples from his remains. Still, nothing. By 2015, the case had become one of the oldest unresolved missing children's cases in the United States. Then, in October 2022, the breakthrough. After decades of investigative work and technological advances, law enforcement officials announced that through familial DNA, they had identified Joseph Augustus Zarelli as the boy in the box. According to NBC News, the effort to identify the boy was led by the FBI, the Pennsylvania State Police, and the Philadelphia Police Department. After finding a match with a distant cousin, they obtained a court order to exhume the boy's body for further testing. When the results confirmed they had the right child, they released the name they had been searching for all these years. It was a moment many thought would never come. But while identifying the victim was a major step, it did not bring closure. No one was charged, and no arrests have been made. Authorities believe Joseph was killed elsewhere and then transported to the location where he was found. They also think he may have been the victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a condition in which a caregiver inflicts illness or injury on someone under their care, often for attention or sympathy. Whoever was responsible for Joseph's death manipulated his appearance, including tying off his legs and wrapping him in a blanket in order to make his body look smaller than it actually was. The case is still open, and police are asking anyone with information to come forward. On February 25, 1957, a Monday morning, the nation awoke to news fit for the headlines of a horror novel. A young boy, no older than 4, had been found dead inside a cardboard box in the woods of a Philadelphia neighborhood. To this day, the circumstances surrounding his death remain a mystery. Who was this boy, and who killed him? It's unclear. What is clear is that he became a haunting specter that changed America's approach to missing children. What is known is that the discovery sent shockwaves through the city. Residents were horrified. A child murdered and discarded like trash, exposed and alone. There were no witnesses, no suspects, no answers. The killer seemingly vanished into thin air. The boy, abandoned in a residential area southwest of downtown Philly, was first spotted around 11 a.m. by a woman walking her dog. She described him as having reddish-brown hair, freckled skin, and wearing a green shirt, a blue jacket, brown shoes, and a hat with ear flaps. At first, she thought he was playing, but something about his posture, slumped and lifeless, tugged at her memory. She recalled seeing the same boy the night before, walking alongside a man, perhaps his father. They strolled leisurely along the sidewalk, chatting. The man walked the boy home, but where was that home? Nobody knew. The child had vanished. In those days, a child could disappear, and a community would only realize days, even weeks later, that the missing kid had been taken. As you probably guessed, there was no national database of missing persons, no centralized system to track them. Police relied heavily on media coverage to spread the word. If someone reported a missing child in New York, a detective in Los Angeles would have no idea unless someone physically went looking for the kid. And even then, cops weren't always diligent about knocking on doors across state lines. No calls were made. No efforts were wasted trying to find the boy. He seemed out of place in the neighborhood, and nobody took notice. Nobody owned him. That's the terrifying reality of what it meant to be invisible in the 1950s. The initial investigation hit a wall. Without witnesses or leads, authorities turned to the boy's appearance for clues. They called him the boy in the box, a moniker that stripped him of humanity and personhood, reducing him to a mere case file. His clothes offered nothing substantial. The box itself bore no markings or identification, leading detectives to believe it was hastily constructed, perhaps moments before the grim act. The autopsy revealed more. The boy was the victim of blunt force trauma. His skull was fractured, suggesting a forceful blow, perhaps from a heavy object. But there was no sign of sexual assault. And here's the kicker: no trace of food in his stomach. That meant he hadn't eaten for quite some time, leading investigators to conclude that he wasn't a local child. Parents don't let their kids go hungry, so if he didn't belong in the neighborhood, he must have come from elsewhere. But where? And why? Years passed. The boy in the box became a ghost, haunting the city's collective consciousness. Every year, newspapers ran updates on the case, keeping it fresh in the minds of readers. Over time, the attention waned. People moved on. The case grew cold. But then in the early 1960s, two things happened that turned the tide. First, the FBI launched the Behavioral Science Unit, a pioneering initiative that shifted law enforcement's approach to criminal psychology. Second, television arrived in American homes. Suddenly, crime wasn't just ink on paper. It was a living, breathing drama unfolding on the screen. Both developments brought renewed focus to old cases, like the boy in the box. Authorities revisited the crime scene, hoping fresh eyes and modern techniques would yield results. Now here's where the plot thickens. A woman came forward claiming the boy she saw in the park belonged to a family she knew. She described them vividly, the couple and their son, even naming the father, Frank A. Bender. But when questioned, the Benders denied everything. Frank vehemently claimed he'd been out of town when the murder occurred. His alibi checked out, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Could the witness be mistaken? Was she hiding something? Or was the killer right under their noses, using an alias, living freely among them? The years rolled on. More theories emerged, each more sensational than the last. Whispers spoke of satanic cults, ritualistic abuse, and even a connection to the infamous killer Ted Bundy. Bundy himself fanned these flames during a 1989 interview, hinting that he might have been involved without explicitly taking responsibility. This led to a media frenzy, but DNA testing later cleared Bundy, much to the chagrin of those seeking closure. As the case grew colder, the boy in the box faded into obscurity. People moved away, new neighborhoods cropped up, and the memories of the residents dimmed. By the turn of the century, the boy in the box was a relic, a bygone tragedy. But that all changed thanks to a television documentary. In 2003, the A&E network revisited the case, sparking a wave of new tips. One witness came forward, claiming to have seen the boy near an apartment building on the 1300 block of South 52nd Street. Could this be his home? Was this the place where he was assaulted? Drawn by the renewed interest, authorities returned to the apartment building, conducting a thorough search. Their efforts paid off. In the basement, they found traces of blood stains, remnants from 48 years prior. These were the first physical links to the crime scene, tangible evidence that someone had died here. Then came the breakthrough. Investigators analyzed the bloodstains and obtained a DNA profile, placing the victim definitively in the apartment. But who lived there? The trail ran cold after that. Authorities found no connection between the residents and the boy. The mystery deepened. Over the next 2 decades, the case remained in limbo. Then, in 2022, a serendipitous tip cracked the case wide open. A man named Joseph Augustus Zarelli had gone missing from his home in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, a town about 30 miles from Philadelphia, on Christmas Eve of 1956. He was only 4 years old. His parents were prominent in the community. His father worked at a car dealership. His mother was active in church. Their lives were upended on December 24th. When they couldn't find their youngest son, Joseph, they assumed he was with one of his 4 siblings, or maybe a neighbor. Hours passed, then days. The family searched frantically, posting flyers and notifying the police, but there was no sign of Joseph. They never imagined he was lying in a shallow grave in Philadelphia. And here's the cruel twist. Joseph's family didn't even know he'd been found. After 65 years, DNA technology finally linked the unidentified boy in the box to the missing Joseph Zarelli. It was a moment of bittersweet triumph for the city of brotherly love. Finally, the boy in the box had a name, a face, and a story. Authorities released a composite sketch based on Joseph's dental records. It depicted a charming boy with a button nose, chubby cheeks, and innocent eyes. The picture humanized the victim, making him more than a case file or a nameless corpse. With Joseph's true identity confirmed, his gravestone was replaced with one that read, "In loving memory of Joseph Augustus Zarelli, beloved son, brother, nephew, and grandson, who touched the hearts of many with his innocence. Born September 4th, 1952, entered into heavenly peace February 25th, 1957. But while the revelation was monumental, it also opened a Pandora's box of unanswered questions. Where did Joseph come from? How did he end up in that box? Why did no one claim him as missing? Most importantly, who killed him? Sadly, the answers are lost to time. Joseph's parents, unable to bear the pain, passed away long ago. His siblings scattered, their memories of their youngest brother fading. Those who might have held crucial information are now gone. The killer, if still alive, is likely elderly and nearing the end of their life. Time, the ultimate equalizer, has blurred the lines between justice and oblivion. The case remains officially unsolved. The killer walks free, hidden among us. Perhaps they sleep soundly, lulled by the passage of time, or maybe they live in constant fear of exposure. Either way, the truth remains buried along with Joseph. In the end, the boy in the box reminds us of the fragility of life and the fallibility of our systems. It reflects a time when children were overlooked, when their absence wasn't immediately investigated. It mirrors a societal shift where children became more visible, thanks in part to horrific tragedies like this one. It was a pivotal case that helped reshape law enforcement and parental vigilance. It ushered in the era of Amber Alerts and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. But for Joseph, it came too late. His killer will likely never face justice. His story will forever be a haunting echo in the corridors of American memory. The story of the boy in the box, of Joseph Augustus Zarelli, is more than just a cold case. It is a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be and how silence can bury the truth just as deeply as the earth itself. His life was erased before it even began, a childhood stolen, and for more than 6 decades, even his name was taken from him. Now we know who he was. We can say his name. We can trace his family. We can put a date to his birth. But none of those facts answer the most important question. Why was Joseph left in that box? Who chose to end his life? And why has no one spoken the truth? What lingers is not just the horror of his death, but the silence that followed. A family who never reported him missing. A community where no one seemed to notice. A society that, for decades, struggled to give him back even the dignity of identity. His story echoes because it forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. There are always children who suffer unseen, whose pain is hidden behind closed doors until it is too late. Joseph's name has been restored, but justice has not. His killer, or killers, remain in the shadows, their secret intact. And so, the case is only half solved. The box may have given up its silence, but the truth about his death has not. As we leave this story, one thought lingers like a chill in the air. We now know his name, but not his story. Who failed Joseph Augustus Zarelli, and will his killer ever face justice? Now, this case has seen a lot of theories over the years, and let's take a look at a few of them. First, some believe that this was the work of a deranged babysitter or nanny. This is often portrayed in the media, and while it fits the timeline, there's no evidence to support this theory. There are, of course, also no records of anyone employed as a nanny by the Zarelli family. Then there's another popular theory that Joseph was a victim of a crime of passion, perhaps even the result of a botched abortion. Again, no evidence, but certainly a possibility. There's also the, was he abused by his parents? While this may sound grim, it sadly isn't far-fetched, and there are some factors that point in this direction. Firstly, the time in which this took place, the 1950s, a time when child abuse was rarely discussed, let alone prosecuted. Secondly, the condition in which Joseph's body was found. He had multiple injuries, including a fractured skull and numerous broken ribs, which suggested a violent assault. And finally, the lack of any significant investigation. This could be attributed to the prevalent societal attitudes towards child abuse and the police's limited understanding of the subject. However, without concrete evidence, it remains just a theory. Another theory is that this was the work of a serial killer, but there's no evidence to support this either. Then there's the unknown. Maybe it was a stranger, someone who abducted Joseph specifically, or just happened upon him. Maybe it was an accident. The possibilities are endless, yet none can be confirmed. What makes this case particularly challenging is the absence of physical evidence. The box and its contents were the primary sources of information, and after 65 years, many crucial details have been lost. The pathologist who conducted the autopsy in 1957 didn't have the benefit of modern technology, and back then, DNA analysis wasn't even a consideration. Without physical evidence, investigators have been piecing together the case like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. Every lead has the potential to be the breakthrough. Every call to the tip line could be the key. But so far, none have yielded definitive answers. The silence surrounding the case has been deafening, but it's understandable. For many years, those involved might have felt overwhelmed by grief, guilt, fear, or shame. In a small community like the one in Philadelphia, the shock of such a tragedy could have been too much to bear, leading to an unspoken understanding to simply move on, to pretend that everything was all right. After all, talking about it would only dredge up painful feelings and bring unwanted attention to the town. In conclusion, the case of the boy in the box remains an enigma, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. The story of Joseph Augustus Zarelli is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. Despite a brutal and untimely demise, his story has not ended. Instead, it has evolved into a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change, a demand for justice. As we reflect on Joseph's story, let us pledge to honor his memory by being vigilant against the signs of suffering in our communities, by lending a helping hand to those in need, and by speaking out against injustice wherever we see it. May his story serve as a guiding light, illuminating the path towards a better, more compassionate world. One where every child can grow up knowing the warmth of love, the joy of laughter, and the comfort of belonging. A world where every life is cherished and every voice is heard. Let us strive to create a world worthy of Joseph. A world where the innocent laughter of children echoes freely, knowing that they are not just playing but living, thriving, and reaching for their dreams. Because in the tapestry of life, every thread, no matter how fragile, contributes to the richness of the design, and every voice, no matter how small, deserves to be heard. Let us ensure that Joseph's story does not fade with time, but becomes a timeless reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the pursuit of justice. Thank you for listening.